following is a presentation of KSL Sports. Hello, Cougar Nation.
Top of the key, triple, Richie Saunders, fourth three-pointer of the night, massive make.
Every Monday night, we break down the Cougars' last game and look ahead to next week. Cougar Nation, brought to you by Central Bank. Here's BYU insider Mitch Harper and Matt Baiamonte on Utah's legacy home of the Cougars, KSL News Radio.
Good evening, Cougar Nation. Welcome on into your show as BYU basketball is flying high after a historic week knocking off two blue blood programs, Kansas and Arizona. And we're discussing all of it right here over the next hour here on the legacy home of the Cougars, KSL News Radio. Mitch Harper, Matt Baiamonte with you. And Matt, these are the times when, Cougar fans are feeling good about life because that was an epic week for BYU hoops.
So long are the days of Loyola, Marymount, and Pepperdine, Mitch. We're talking blue bloods, victories. This is what BYU fans always wanted, and Kevin Young and company are delivering a memorable season for Cougar Nation.
It was an incredible week for BYU basketball, and it has us asking the question, was that the greatest week in BYU basketball history? Load up the phone lines, 801-575-8255. Again, 801-575-8255. Share your thoughts, or you can also weigh in on anything regarding BYU basketball. We're going to have a special caller coming in at the bottom of the hour. Cannon Catchings, heralded freshman, going to be joining us here at the bottom of the hour to discuss his performance in Arizona. But right now, we got to get to our takeaways from that big week.
Cougar Nation takeaways. Mitch and Matt analyze BYU's last week of play and what it means for the next week.
I'll start things off, Mitch. One of many takeaways, and there are a lot of positive takeaways from that win against Arizona, but I came away from that game feeling like Kevin Young, BYU's coach, is already one of the elite coaches in the Big 12. I thought his substitution patterns were exceptional. I thought he drew up some outstanding plays out of timeouts to get easy points. I kind of felt like him coming from the NBA, this team would be better situationally, but I didn't think it would be to this level. It is incredible what he's done with this group and the changes he has made throughout the season. There's been a lot of subtle tweaks from non-conference play to the start of Big 12 play to where we're at now, where this team continues to improve. He's been fantastic, and he's far exceeded my expectations, and I think he's already one of the best coaches in the conference.
BYU, took Arizona's best shot, literally, from Arizona on the offensive end. Arizona scores 95 points, and, Tommy Lloyd himself, Arizona head coach, admits that they're not the greatest offensive team. BYU gives up 95, yet they go back and forth in a high-level scoring game, and they put up 96, and they win that game. I just think that's significant because, Matt, you look at maybe some of the history of BYU basketball and BYU football too. When you pull off a big upset, if you're BYU, particularly on the road, maybe that team that was the odds-on favorite just underperforms to what they usually do. Arizona was, in many respects, the best version of themselves, especially on the offensive end, and BYU still won that game, and that's pretty impressive stuff by BYU, and the toughness of BYU to keep battling really stood out to Kevin Young.
It's a bad call. I mean, whatever. What am
I just felt like whoever was going to kind of get the last stop was going to win. And, we did some things better in the second half, particularly less turnovers. As physical as they are, for us to go +4 on second chance points when we're undersized against their size, I thought that just really spoke to our toughness in that game, and that's ultimately what won it, was just sheer toughness.
He's not wrong, Mitch. That was an incredibly gritty and tough performance. I thought they started the game rebounding very well. It got away from them a little bit, where Arizona ended up out-rebounding them by 11. But to win that game, considering the rebounding margin, was impressive for BYU. Another takeaway for me, Mitch, is I thought BYU's bench points was fantastic. 30 points off the bench. Cannon Catchings, who we'll have at the bottom of the hour, he played a big role in that. And then shout out to Trey Stewart, man. This dude has been through a lot. He played 18 minutes. He played more minutes than Trevin Knell, who started the game. Trey Stewart was a weapon defensively in that game. And no play was maybe more important, Mitch, Then on that final play with less than 3 seconds left, Trey Stewart completely stonewalls and denies Caleb Love from even getting the ball, because Caleb Love this year has made a half-court shot at the buzzer. Like, if he gets that thing off and gets to half-court, it could very well go in. And the way that Caleb Love was playing in that second half, who knows what could have happened. He had 17 points in the second half, and for Trey Stewart to take him away, that it eventually leads to a turnover, and Richie throws it up in the air. But this bench play is outstanding, and it's becoming a real weapon for this team at the right time.
I like that point. BYU takes down Arizona 96-95. It completes a week of consecutive back-to-back wins for BYU for the first time since 1988. That was against Wyoming and UTEP. Now, with all due respect to those teams back in the old WAC, I think it slaps a little different when you're taking down Kansas and you're taking down Arizona. It was one of the great weeks in BYU basketball history. And another takeaway for me, this BYU team is gaining momentum at season's end, similar to the one 5 years ago in the first year under Mark Pope. That team reeled off a 9-game winning streak to close out the season. You know, this group is on a 4-game winning streak, winners of their 8 of their last 10. Now they're ranked in the AP Top 25 at number 25. There's just a lot of momentum building for this team, and that's exciting because we've talked about it throughout the entire season on this show. Play your best basketball in March. Well, this coming Saturday is March, and BYU is looking like the best versions of themselves.
Mitch, I think it's time to address the elephant in the room, which is that foul call that led to Richie Saunders scoring. I did not have a problem with it. Now, I don't know that it was a foul. I think it was a bang-bang play. It could have gone either way. I think the reason I'm okay with the call ultimately is on the previous possession, Caleb Love got a whistle on a very similar ticky-tack soft foul. And if that's the way you're going to call it down the stretch, then that's fine. It just needs to be equal. And we've come on here before and talked about frustrations with Big 12 officiating. I don't think it was that bad in that game. And I thought it was pretty fair. It was pretty consistent. Yeah, did BYU benefit from the whistle? Sure. But BYU has also been in that position before, Mitch, where they don't make those free throws and they lose that game. They did that right up the street at the Huntsman Center. They had a chance to win the game at the free throw line. They didn't do it. So credit to Richie and BYU for making a play. I don't know. I just don't feel like it was that controversial of a call if you had watched that entire game and seen how those plays were being called down the stretch.
Yeah, I thought it was in the moment. I felt like BYU got away with one. But then, of course, what happens on social media, similar to the Utah football game, which was one of the worst weeks ever on social media, where everyone was acting like an officiating expert with these grainy iPhone videos and all these different angles. Yep. We're seeing that now with BYU and Arizona. Trey Townsend fouled Richie Saunders. I'm with you. I think that ultimately there was a lot of consistencies. I think just what becomes a bigger storyline is that Tony Padilla, the official in the game, he's like a household name among Big 12 fans. And even former players like Nick Emery going to social media, sounding off on Tony Padilla, where he was located on the court. Is he the guy that should be calling that? Look, Tommy Lloyd, Arizona head coach, he was obviously not thrilled with it, and he called it, a bad call.
It's a bad call. I mean, whatever. What am I going to say? I mean, you hate for a game to be decided by that. Listen, it's the Big 12. That's what I'm told. And the guy who called it's one of the best refs. So, we got to live with it. But step back. They scored 93 points up to that point on our home court.
And there you go. That's the biggest point, is that at the end of the day, Arizona gave up 96 to BYU. And you don't have anyone else to blame but yourself, Arizona. You were on your home court. You were the favorite. You allow 96 in regulation. I mean, that was a high-level scoring game. Back and forth they went. Both teams just knocking down shots left and right. Arizona has got to get a stop, and they can't just chalk it up to the officials. Don't put yourself in a position where the officials could sway potentially an outcome, but also we're not acknowledging, too, Richie Saunders goes to the foul line and buries the free throws.
Right.
Moments prior, Dallin Hall missed a front end, and I thought, oh, no, Dallin Hall is going to have that similar experience to what Trevin Knell experienced at the Huntsman Center, but now that gets forgotten after Richie stepped up and knocked down 2 clutch free throws.
Well, I also thought if you want to go a little further back in that sequence, Mitch, Caleb Love benefited greatly from the whistle down the stretch. He attacked Keita twice that I thought was just good defensive plays by Keita, a no call. Then there was the three on Trevin Knell where it was very hard to tell on TV if he actually touched Caleb Love. And that was a huge sequence. BYU was up 4. Caleb Love gets that whistle. He buries all 3 free throws. And then on the other end, Mawot Mag hits a 3. If those free throws don't happen, BYU goes up 7, and they're comfortably in a position to win that game. So if you want to put the microscope on any single call, you can do that, and it can go both ways. But ultimately, I thought BYU made a play. And I also, too, like how Richie Saunders in that moment, the play call was for him. The initial action wasn't there. He said as much post-game. And then he made a play. And this is what Kevin Young had to say on that final play call that got Richie Saunders to the free throw line.
We were in a similar situation, less time on the clock at Utah, and I kicked myself for not having a thing dialed up. And so it's something I've spent a lot of mental time on in that particular situation. The play broke down, but ultimately we wanted to go to Richie, and he was able to make a play.
And that he did. Richie Saunders, the Big 12 Player of the Week this week in the conference. First time a BYU player, men's player, has earned that Player of the Week honor, and this was Richie on hitting those game-winning free throws.
I've practiced that, since I was a little kid in the church gym. That's what I practice. You practice and you hope for moments like that, right? Where you can just step up and shoot those free throws. It's so loud and everything's on the line. That's why you play basketball.
Good stuff there from Richie Saunders, and it is probably got to be the moment that you dream of as a young player. I mean, to get a chance in a historic venue like the McKell Center, Richie Saunders steps up to the line, knocks it down. I think it's safe to say, Matt, that if a game is on the line, BYU is going to Richie Saunders. He's become that go-to guy for the Cougars.
It's hard to believe, but he's playing that way. He deserves those opportunities with his play. I love that he got the Big 12 Player of the Week. Well deserved. Let's take a break, Mitch. On the other side, we'll get to some calls. We'll answer the question, was that the greatest week in the history of BYU basketball? You can call us 801-575-8255. Cougar Nation brought to you by Central Bank, voted best bank and mortgage in Utah Valley. Visit us online at cbutah.com.